So there's a delay. It must be because you're from across the pond, as it were.
Yes.
Right. So, Samantha, tell us, for those that are listening, and we'll be on the replay as well because I'm recording this as we go. Tell us a little bit about you and where you're at right now.
Right now, I have just set up an online program and I want to get my message across so that it's crystal clear to my client. And I found that going from working within the community to working online, there's a big, big difference. You have to be able to nail your client completely and have them down to a T. And I believe my message is one that needs to be shared, and I just need help, just really refining my story to be able to get that across to my audience to give them the greatest impact possible. I've been working in the fitness industry for 6 years now. I came from a background where I was always active, but really suffered with chronic daily back pain. And then after I had the children, that just escalated and snowballed and was 100 times worse. And then also put on a lot of weight because I just could not move. And I researched diets, and that's how I got into the fitness industry. Just decided that this was the way forward, and I had to share my story with all the other women that were in a similar position to me and just surviving, stuck in Groundhog Day, and needed to thrive and have the energy that they could give to their kids, just like I wanted to be able to jump on the trampoline and, run around and be pain-free and, give their family the best start that they could in life. So that's cool. Where I am right now.
Excellent. So I just want to make sure everybody can hear this. So if you can hear and see us, if you could just post in the comments there that, yes, I can hear you in the comments there, or put a thumbs up, or better yet, do the little heart. Yay.
Yay. We love
it. What is that? Like that? Oh, that's the shiny heart then, right? The jazz hands hearts, right? Cool. So I see Simon's on there, Jack's on there. All right, cool. Simon. Thanks, guys. Hi, Jack. Welcome aboard. So this is what we're going to do today, and it's kind of exciting. This is what I do generally the second or third call as part of the Story Impact program that I've developed, or I'm going through a rebranding, just like you have. And kind of rebranding the whole program a little bit. So it's a little bit more clear, obviously. But the whole gist of it is, how do we create a better connection with our prospects through our own stories? And there's been some studies out of Princeton, I think, where they studied the kind of the mental impact or the brain's impact on stories. And it creates this really nice connection between the storyteller and the one that's listening. And when it's a prospect that's listening, that's even better, because now you have somebody that's really connected and knows you, likes you, and trusts you, and is going to do what you ask them to do, which might be to buy your program, and might be to change their life for the better, whatever that happens to be. But through stories, we're able to connect a lot better with people. So I learned that just doing, traveling around the world. And that's how I actually met Samantha at a small group workshop that we did in London. Was it in London, or was it in Hayward? Okay. Yeah. Awesome. It was
like a long time ago.
In Gatwick, right? In that Hilton. Yeah. They knew me well there, unfortunately. Well, or fortunately, I don't know which it is, but
fortunately.
Yeah. That was a great hotel. And, I love doing those small group workshops. There's 15, 20 people. I would tell stories about my business. I would teach along the way. And then at the end of the day, then I would ask people to invest in the program. And Samantha was one of those lucky people that got to invest in the program. And here we are today.
Yeah.
All right. So here is, so what I generally ask clients to do is write out their story and send it over to me, and then we'll go through it together and show the process of changing up the story so it makes it a little bit more dramatic. Because that's the whole key is, everybody has a great story, but, how do you amp it up so that it becomes even more amazing? So people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. So, so let's start going through it. All right, Samantha, you good with that?
Yeah, sure.
All right, perfect. So what I found interesting is, like, when we first spoke, and just now when you gave your introduction, you talked a lot about the back pain and how debilitating that was for you, and yet I don't see it here in, like, here it's down here, and it's kind of hidden a little bit with joint and back pain. It's like a fat, grumpy, low energy mother riddled with joint and back pain. I'd much rather see that. Like, that was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that was your inciting moment, or the full conflict where you decided to make a change. Is that right?
Yeah, the pain and being overweight. Overweight was emotional, and obviously the back pain was the physical that I was experiencing every day. So not only did I hate the way that I looked, mentally, but it was a daily physical pain that was just wouldn't go away. And it had been like that on and off for 20 years, but having two kids had just exacerbated the whole issue.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, you talk a little bit about it up here at the top, the pain. I'd like to see that highlighted even more, so that the audience gets really the full impact of the pain. So what I'd like to see, I don't think you need to start the question here. Sometimes I ask people to start with a question. Sometimes the story really isn't relevant to a question. So I'd take this out. So let me ask you, do you love the body that you live in? I think you go right to, I was standing in the kitchen, and I would describe it with some really rich detail. Like, was it a sunny day? Was it of course it wasn't sunny. It's England. Was it, sorry. Was it a rainy day? Was it cold and rainy? What was for breakfast? What were you cooking? And then
I can't remember any of that, because I just remember that day as the day of pain and that moment. And I honestly can't remember anything before. I just turned in the kitchen. It was around breakfast time.
Okay.
But it was that bad. How do I put that into the story?
Yeah.
Or read it?
Yeah, great question. So what I would suggest then is, kind of retrace your steps a little bit, in terms of, like, you were walking into the kitchen, and you can embellish a little bit, not outright lie, of course, but you can embellish the story with, it was a typical day, where I'm getting ready to make breakfast for the kids, or for your, it was for your kids, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just really just amp up that inciting moment. Like, what was it that, like, was there a turn? Did you bend over to pick something up, and it just, like, the pain, like, I want to feel that pain in your words.
So if I didn't keep my body in line with my pelvis, then I was in agony. So even getting out of the car, when you take your legs across, and I literally just took one step at 45 degrees, and the whole world stopped.
There you go. That's what I want to hear. The whole world stopped. So that's exactly it. So January 2017, I made a step and my whole world stopped.
Okay.
And then I would sit on that for a second, let the audience sit on that. And then go into the story. I was making breakfast, and that step paralyzed every cell in my body, and time just stopped. I couldn't take it anymore. I'd had enough of the daily chronic pain that I've had enough of the daily chronic pain, period. Right. That pain led me to have, or to be, or to have a fat, bloated stomach, have constant lethargy,
Lethargy, yeah.
lethargy. No,
Or
it
fatigue.
sounds so much fatigue. I like it the way you say it better. And low moods that went with it. And then I would describe the Groundhog Day a little bit.
Yeah.
So what does that really mean to you? It's like every day, everybody kind of knows what Groundhog Day is, of course, but I would describe like every morning, this is what happened. Because now you have that inciting moment. People are like, oh my gosh, like, that sounds horrible. And then you hit them again with, and this happened every single day. And I would actually point that out. This happened every single day. And then say it was my own personal Groundhog Day with no way out.
Okay. So it would start from the evening before, because by the time I got to bed, I was willing, from probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I was just willing the time away to just get into bed, because I was in agony. And to be honest, I just didn't want to wake up and start the whole thing over again. And I knew by the time that I got to lunchtime, that would be it. I'd be screaming pain all over. And I was just then willing the time away. And it was that constant cycle. So anything that I wanted to do had to be done in the morning.
Okay.
There's just no joy in my life at that time.
Yeah. And so bring that up as well. So we're going into, this was my Groundhog Day. Right?
Yeah.
And then I would go what you just said about the evening time. So it's okay to go back in time. Evening, didn't want to wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing, experiencing that amount of pain, is that you're always distracted. You can never concentrate on anything.
Yeah.
And so even when people would be talking to me, I never felt like I was completely listening to them or just being able to concentrate on the job that I was doing, because you always had this nagging, pain in the background. And I was always aware of where the kids would kind of jump on me, because, I had to make sure that I was sort of stable enough to hold myself up. So I don't know if that's worth weaving into the story or not, or...
I think that comes out here. So you're kind of adding a little bit more color to the story. So, the pain was, so you go through, and that was my personal Groundhog Day. Every night when I went to bed at night, I wouldn't want to wake up in the morning, because I knew what was coming and the pain that would accompany it. I knew that I couldn't be present with my children because the pain was always nagging. So it's taking that and we're just shortening it out a little bit, shortening it down to really succinct, powerful words and statements to keep your audience really engaged in the story.
Yeah.
And of course we understand what the goal is, right? Is, at the end of it, you found a way out of the pain and you want to share that with other people. So the goal of this whole talk is to get people to make a change. And ideally that they're going to purchase your program, because your program is the best way to help them with their gut health, which will help them with their pain, will help them get to a place where you were able to get to as well.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to keep that in mind as we drive the story, because now at this point we need to bring the audience in so that they can see themselves in that story, and they can see you as their guide through the story. So at this point, I would say perhaps some of you have felt this way as well. And then go into I was carrying an extra 65 pounds of weight. I felt bloated all the time. I was tired. And I think it's worth repeating that. Had low moods and all that. And perhaps some of you have felt this way as well. Not only that, I would add that, and not only that, but I had two small children, 3-month old, a 3-month and a 3-year old. And then, I thought, is this what their mother had to offer them? Is this all their mother had to offer them? A fat, grumpy, low energy mother riddled with joint and back pain. So there you've described the pain, and this is the future you, right? What you wanted out of it. So I wanted to be the mom who did handstands and cartwheels. So that's perfect. I love how this transition happened. I would totally keep that in, because it's painting a picture of what you want. So it's where you were and the pain that you were in, and now we're going into where you want to be with it.
Okay.
And then we go into, so then you found a guide. Boom. You're the hero in this story, by the way. And you find this guide, this personal trainer, that's talking about natural food and weight loss, right?
Yeah.
Diets don't work. But you found people that were slim, happy, and more importantly, never ill. Their mindset was different. And so this is great, because now, being the body mind coach, or is it body mind
coach?
Yep. So this totally makes sense. And right. So the body and then the mind here. So then you make the choice, right? So that's when you make the choice, which is great. You're still feeding. That day at the end of, I'd hit rock bottom. So this day is the very first day, right? January 2012.
Yeah.
So I would reference that back. I think the dates are off here, because the inciting moment, now we're back. So what happened is, so you have the inciting moment. We went backwards, and you kind of colored what happened up to that point.
Yeah.
And kind of how you're feeling around that. And now we're back at the inciting moment.
Okay.
Right. Because that was your rock bottom.
Yeah.
And And so, and I would bring back, I didn't want to repeat another day like that. Your Groundhog Day. I think that's a really good analogy as well. Everybody can really understand that. I would bring the audience in again. So it's, you can do call outs like, have you ever felt where you're asking a question, but you're making a statement. I'm sure many of you have thought something, right? So here's like many of you, I'm sure you've realized that nobody can help you except yourself. That you have to make the decision to help yourself or find the help. And I would say that, to find the help. The insurance company would no longer pay up for physio. I could have bought a small car. I love that. That's awesome. Actually, why don't you come up with a brand of car? So it just, again, adds a little more color to the story. I could have bought a Fiat, or, something that's an international small car, like a Kia or something like that. Do you guys have Kias over there?
We do. Yeah. I was just thinking of a BMW, a bit reminded of mine. Apologies to
anybody. That too is. I could have bought a BMW 3 Series with all the money that I spent on osteopath, and at that point, I think you would get a laugh as well.
Yeah.
Which is really important when you're going through like a really hard story like this, is that you need to take people on a little roller coaster ride. So, finding some moments where you can throw in some humor will be really, really cool. And it'll lighten the mood a little bit.
Okay.
And I think that's the appropriate part. So I could have bought a BMW with the amount of money I spent on osteopaths and chiropractors. It's good. But I realized the only person who could change my body and mind was myself. And then here is, the kind of pinnacle of what's happened for you. It's like, and I would let this line really sit in, right? And in 10 days, I would say, instead of within, I would just say in 10 days, I lost 10 pounds. And then let that sit.
Okay.
Had the scales gone wrong? Did I measure improperly? No, this was actually happening. But more importantly, my debilitating, and I think it's important to get some charged words in here.
Yeah.
Right. Debilitating back and joint pain had almost vanished. I don't quite understand. Not only that, but I was still feeding during the night.
So my daughter at the time, she was only 3 months old. So she was still waking up, 2 or 3 times maybe during the night. But I had so much energy, it was as though that was completely irrelevant, because every morning I was able to jump up out of bed and start the day afresh. Whereas, I felt like I was walking around in a zombie before.
Yeah.
As a zombie.
So before you go into that piece, I want a little bit more detail on what you were eating. that made this shift?
Um, Probably, cakes every day, homemade ones, but still cakes, and probably pasta, and it was generally all homemade, but there would have been a lot of chocolate in there, and mostly beigey carbs, I would say.
Okay. That was before, right?
That was before.
So yeah, so I would go here like before I was eating cakes and pasta and um, refined carbohydrates,
Yeah.
which I've realized now was causing the debilitating back pain and back and joint pain.
Yeah.
When I changed to eating, is it whole? I'm guessing a whole food, plant
Yeah.
based.
Yeah. Plant-based. Yeah.
Yep. So when I changed to eating a plant based whole food diet, real food that doesn't have long names, and I would kind of give some glimpse of what this is, what you did to
Yeah.
make that change, I think. And then, so detail on the change from pasta.
Tom, I can't
Fine.
believe it. I've got somebody at the door that I need to give some keys to.
Oh yeah, no worries, no worries.
Give me
I'll
2 seconds.
I'll entertain everybody here. Well, all right. So what we're doing here is just it's her story, which is really good, and then just changing it up a little bit to add some punches, to add the words in there that's going to get people to take action. So as each of you, anybody that's listening here and wants to get better at storytelling, one thing that's super, super important is understanding, one, what's your goal at the end of your story? So what do you want people to do with this? So understanding that. The second is putting it in an order that totally makes sense. Hey, she's back. So I'm just kind of reviewing for everybody like what we're doing here. So you want to put it in an order that makes sense for people. So the best thing to get people's attention is that inciting moment, the conflict. What was the big thing that happened? And then go into the detail of what led up to that, making sure that you're pulling the audience in at appropriate points, add some humor in there, add some tears if necessary, if that's appropriate, and allow the audience to feel or to see themselves in the story with you. So if because you found a guide who is this personal trainer that gave you an idea of whole food plant-based diet, better movement, that's going to cure your joint and back pain. You spent a small fortune. You could have bought a BMW with the amount of money that you spent on osteopath and chiropractics. But she realized that the only person that could change was she was the only person that could change her mind and body. And within 10 days, she lost 10 pounds. Had the scales gone wrong? Nope, this was actually happening. More importantly, the back pain had almost vanished. Before, so showing the before and after, before I was eating chocolate, I was eating cakes, I was eating pasta and squishy carbs and refined products. And I changed that to eating a whole food, plant-based diet. And I think everybody can understand what that is, because that's pretty, I mean, it comes from the ground. It's real food. It doesn't come out of a box and you don't have to unwrap it. And then maybe add in there a little bit about kind of the exercise that you were doing, more stretching or, HIIT or whatever it happened to have been for you. And then, so that's the before and after of what you changed. And then because of that change, even though my daughter was waking up 3 times, 4 times in the night for feeding, every morning I woke up jumped out of bed like a tiger. And that's a really good analogy too, like, a tiger. It only took 38 years to finally wake up. And then, I made the switch, surviving to thriving. and I just worry, and I would say I would just worry about how many other moms are stuck in their own Groundhog Day. And perhaps you're one of those people. And then I would go into the pitch at that point. And I mean, there's different ways of if you're doing a 5-minute, 10-minute talk or something like that, then you would go directly into a pitch about your program and how that's different from everything else and how you can connect better with women that are going through the same thing. The other is if it's a keynote speech or you're doing a workshop or a webinar or something like that, then you go into a teaching moment at this point. So teach people a little bit about what they need to do to make that change in their life, and then go back into another story that would be relevant to another teaching point.
Okay.
And that's when I go through the Always Be Selling system, and I'll just put a plug for that. There's a webinar next Thursday at 5:00 Central, 6 Eastern. So the link is in the comments below. So if you're interested in joining us for that webinar, it's 5 steps to creating stories that sell, and how to do that. Really kind of what we've done today, but the other steps along the way as well. But coming up with your signature story is like one of the best things that anybody in business should do, especially service providers, those that are talking with people on a daily basis, providing a service, because that shows you more of a human being. Because especially as health and fitness professionals, everybody sees you and goes, "Oh, you've always been like this. It's easy for you," and all that. It's like, well, clearly it's not easy. Look at what Samantha had to go through for 38 years. Waking up and finally finding the balance that created this change. So what do you think about that, Samantha?
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's tweaking, isn't it? And it's just where to add in, those phrases to create more impact that will really, make the difference to the audience.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, it's all about the drama and the impact.
Yeah.
And then the performance of it as well, which I go into quite a bit since I have a degree in theater. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, I mean and I think the first step is just get that story down on paper so you understand a lot of people will write that out chronological. I'm glad that you didn't actually. I mean, it would have been kind of cool to take it through a chronological story and then rearrange it. But you already knew that structure to start with that impact and then color in as you go. Yeah. So that's generally the format that I like to take people in, so that you really, especially for a signature story, you're grabbing that attention right away.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
So good job. Good job on that.
Thank you. Good job, Tom Jackobs.
Oh, thanks. My pleasure. And I hope you took notes. Of course, this was recorded, so you can always go back and revise that story. I would love to. Oh, excellent. Why don't you send that to me later once you're done kind of editing it? And I'd love to see how you came up with the final product.
Thank you very much, Tom.
You're welcome. And thank you, everybody that joined live on the call. And if you're not live on the call, you can just put some comments below what you thought about this. And if you'd like to see more case studies like this in the future, I'd love to learn about that. So until next time, Samantha, thank you so much. Yes. And we'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye.